Okay, so what we're breaking down today is something pretty unique. It's not a courtroom drama, it's not a movie scene, it's a raw, unfiltered debate. This is what happens when two sides of the law, who, let's be honest, almost never speak as equals, finally sit across from each other at the same table. So, on one side, you've got Michael Francis, and this guy wasn't just any mobster. He was a capo regie, a captain, in the Colombo crime family. Yeah, one of New York's infamous five families. I mean, this is a life that most of us, right, we've only ever seen in the movies.
And who's he facing? On the other side of the table? A room full of 20 law enforcement officers. We're talking active cops, former cops, FBI agents, you name it. Basically, the very people whose entire job is to put guys exactly like Francis behind bars.
So, what happens when you put these two sides in a room together, when these completely opposite worlds collide? Look, this isn't just a simple debate about crime and punishment. No, it's way deeper. It's about a fundamental clash over what the word justice even means.
All right, so we're going to break this whole thing down into four main parts. First, we'll talk about manufacturing crime. Are stings ethical? Then, bending the rules. Do cops cross the line? After that, the inside man. Can you trust informants? And believe it or not, we'll end on fear and common ground, where these two sides actually agree.
Okay, let's dive into that first big point, undercover stings. Right out of the gate, Franzese makes this pretty bold claim. He says these operations don't just find crime, they literally create it. And, well, as you can probably guess, the officers in the room had a very different take. You know, at the core of this whole argument is this legal idea called entrapment. Basically, it just means the cops can't, push someone into committing a crime they weren't already likely to commit anyway. And the key word there, the one that everything hinges on, is predisposed. That's where the fireworks really start. So Francis's take is super simple, really direct. He's like, look, when the government uses an informant to set up a crime, that crime would not exist if they hadn't gotten involved. From his perspective, they are literally manufacturing crime out of thin air. But the officers, they come back with a really strong counterpoint. They say, hold on, we're just providing an opportunity. The final decision, the choice to actually cross that line and do the crime, that's all on the individual. They're saying we set the stage, but the suspect is the one who decides to act on it. And this really gets to the heart of it, right? It's a total philosophical split. For Francis, it's the but-for argument. But for the government's involvement, there's no crime. For law enforcement, it's the total opposite. They believe that criminal mindset, that predisposition was already there. All they did was provide the catalyst. Okay, so from there, the debate kind of shifts gears. It moves away from tactics and gets more into personal integrity. Franzese basically accuses law enforcement of being willing to bend or, straight up break the very laws they've sworn to uphold, especially when they're trying to catch a big fish. And his logic is, the bigger the name, think of someone like John Gotti, the bigger the payoff for the cops. A huge conviction like that means promotions, awards, your career takes off. And Franzese argues that this whole system creates a culture where, maybe you cut a few corners to land that major target. But the officers fire right back with a really practical defense. They're like, do you have any idea how much work goes into one of these cases? The hours, the effort, the personal sacrifices. They say risking all that by doing something illegal wouldn't just be wrong, it would be incredibly stupid. You'd blow the whole case. And Francis doesn't just make vague claims. He gets really specific, listing things he says he's seen himself. He's talking about agents telling witnesses to lie under oaths, hiding evidence that could help the defendant, and even forcing people to become informants. And that leads us right into the next hot topic, and it's a big one, the paid informant. Are these guys a necessary tool for getting inside criminal organizations, or does the whole idea of paying for testimony just corrupt the entire justice system? Wow. Okay, Franzese does not hold back here. He makes this incredible claim that in his entire life, we're talking his own trials, his father's trials, all of it, he has never, not once, seen a paid informant tell the truth on the stand. He says they lie every single time. So you gotta ask, why would they all lie? Well, according to Franzese, just look at the incentives. These guys are looking at serious prison time. And then the government comes in and offers them this incredible deal. Testify for us and we'll cut your sentence, give you a pile of cash, and set you up in witness protection. I mean, he argues that's a huge motivation to just say whatever you think they want to hear. But again, the officers push back, and they push back hard.
They explained that the system has checks and balances for this exact reason. An informant's word is never enough. It's just not. Their story has to be corroborated, right? It has to be backed up by other solid evidence, wiretaps, surveillance, documents, whatever. You just can't build a case on one person's testimony alone.
Okay, so in the middle of all this back and forth, all this conflict, something really fascinating starts to happen. The whole vibe of the conversation shifts, and these two sides, they actually start to find some common ground. And it's pretty surprising, honestly.
So Franzese talks about how, yeah, as a mob captain, he had this aura of intimidation when he walked into a room. People were scared. And then one of the officers jumps in and says, you know what? The police uniform does the exact same thing. It creates its own aura of fear and authority. It's this moment where they realize, wow, we both use intimidation as a tool. And that leads to this really amazing moment from one of the officers. She points out that their lifestyles, their worlds, actually mimic each other. I mean, think about it. Both have strict hierarchies, codes of conduct, intense pressure. They're just on opposite sides of the same coin.
And then Frenzy says something you might not expect at all. He says flat out, I support the police. He wants them there to protect his family. His issue, he explains, isn't with the idea of policing itself. It's with what he sees as dirty tactics and abuse of power. He's basically saying, just play by the rules, period.
So when you boil it all down, this was never really just about one case or one tactic. It was a clash between two totally different philosophies of what justice even is. One philosophy that was born on the streets, and another that was taught in police academies. And that really leaves us all with a big question to think about, right? When the goal is justice, when you're trying to make society safer, do the ends justify the means? Is it ever okay to bend the rules to get the bad guy? It's a tough one.